So what ways do you see Senator Bennett trying to get support for himself in this way?
Well, he's wrapping himself in Mitt Romney, as the others do when they can as well. It's like there's this icon that gives them a hall pass or something. And one candidate, Cherilyn Eagar, said Romney would have voted against it, and Senator Bennett said Romney said it was important and a courageous vote. We'll have to ask Mitt Romney where he really stands on the issue.
And the other difficult problem I think Senator Bennett has is that it's very difficult to say Washington is broke and Washington is responsible for these problems when you've been part of Washington, D.C. for 3 terms.
Let's turn now to another hot-button topic, health care. For months, controversy has raged over how or even whether to make health insurance available to Americans. We got reaction from candidates on a health care bill co-sponsored by Senator Bennett.
Well, the biggest problem with the Bennett health care bill is that it has a mandate on individuals to buy insurance, and it's forcing people who may or may not want to buy insurance to buy it. Health care costs are really going up, and government intervention is not going to stem health care costs from going up. The private sector and putting responsibility in the hands of individuals will. So health savings account, as an example, the state of Indiana has a really great program where they've seen over 70% of their public employees, state employees, buy into a health savings account, and it makes them make the health care decisions. Do I really need this? How much does it cost? And that's one of the only ways that we're really going to drive down costs in the health care arena. And neither Obama nor Senator Bennett's plan would grow the use of health savings accounts.
We recognize that the healthcare system in this country is broken. It's damaging small business as well as big business. It makes us uncompetitive with other countries around the world, other companies around the world. A great deal needs to be done. And we've said, Mr. President, we will help you do it, but you've got to meet us in the middle. There's a great deal in that bill I really like. And Senator Wyden is being savage from the left for having co-sponsored it.
As you are from the right.
And I'm being savage from the right. I said to him, there's some things in this bill I don't like, and he said, Bob, everything is negotiable. Let's get the debate started. And I say, well, if you're willing to get the debate started with free market principles on the table rather than just a completely government-run system, why, I'm willing to do that.
I'm a real fan of many of the programs being proposed by a friend of mine, someone I served with, Congressman Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. I don't want to take people off of Medicare that are relying on that for their health care in their retirement. But I do think that we have to look at allowing insurance to be sold and purchased across state lines. I think we need to open up private accounts in health insurance. And Congressman Ryan has a very well thought out program, and I think knows more about this issue than just about anybody else, either in the House or in the Senate, and I would be collaborating with him.
You're referring to the Healthy Americans Act,
Yes.
which Senator Bennett is co-sponsoring with Senator Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon. Has 2 elements to it that I find very troubling. First, it essentially declares health care to be a right protected by the federal government. We're saying the federal government can't not provide you health insurance. I don't like that. I find that troubling. I don't find the power to do that in the Constitution. The second thing I find about that that's very troubling is that, like the President's health care proposal, it contains an individual insurance coverage mandate, telling every American, every man, woman, and child, that they have to go out and they have to get health insurance. Not just any health insurance, but the kind of health insurance that Congress, in its infinite wisdom, deems acceptable for the American people.
There are components of that bill that I would very much disagree with. Some say that it would be more costly. For example, it would require that all business owners provide benefits to their employees. Now, I'm a small business owner, and to us what that means is we could have up to 25% extra taxes, and that is really putting a blanket over productivity in the middle sector of our economy. It is a federally government managed alternative. You try and find that in the Constitution and I'll buy your lunch. Article 1, Section 8 is very specific on the limited enumerated powers of the federal government. And although in that section of the Constitution it says provide for the general welfare, that is specific to the limited enumerated powers that are within that section.
And yet we have programs like Medicare and prescription drug benefits.
Sure do.
And so, you would want to do away with those?
I
or?
would absolutely want to phase them out.
The Wyden-Bennett Healthy Americans Act is an example of working with other legislators, crossing party lines to advance public policy. The candidates have their opinion on that subject.
Are there circumstances under which you would co-sponsor a bill with a Democrat? And if so, what are those circumstances? When would you reach out and compromise and co-sponsor something with a member of the other party?
Well, it would probably take a conservative Democrat for me to be compromising, because what's been happening over the years is Republicans are taking the worst parts of the bills out and then saying, okay, now it's acceptable. And so this is like a house sale. You know, the seller's going to set the price, and they know the margin, all right, and the bottom line. And really what's happening is that the Republicans are being left the fools in it, and they're the losers.
Is it impossible to work with senators from the other side of the aisle simply because they come from different sets of principles?
No, I certainly would never say it's impossible to work with people on the other side of the aisle, but I have a couple responses to that question. First, as I heard Senator Bennett point out in a speech just 2 or 3 weeks ago, while Republicans are in the minority, arguably the only real power Republican senators have while they're in the minority is to vote no. I can vote no just as well as someone who's been there for 3 terms, and I can do it a lot more often. So that's my first response to that. My second response to that is, to the extent there is a suggestion out there that says, look, you can vote for whomever you want, because this is, after all, a republic, and as citizens in a republic, you have the right to elect someone of your choice. But if you elect someone other than the incumbent, you will lose power. You will pay for exercising that right. I find that offensive, and I find that anathema to the very idea of Republican democracy.
Every major accomplishment we've had in this country has always been bipartisan. Every time we have moved forward in a significant way, it has been a bipartisan activity. Working across the aisle does not mean, as I'm being accused of doing, joining the president on the left. That, in my view, is not bipartisanship. The kinds of relationships that I have built, the kinds of coalitions that are there as we address the truly challenging problems, will simply not be available to a newcomer in first 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it might be. And I believe the primary fight we have is going to occur within the next 3 to 4 years, 5 at the outside. The entitlements, the turning the country around on the spending issue. We need a team marshaled to do that, and I have the kind of relationships that make me part of that team. A newcomer will have to start out and hope to break into it, and frankly, it's not clubbishness, it's just understanding the whole process.
The biggest issue facing this country right now is the growing debt, the explosive spending that's going on. And I believe there will be some Democrats elected in this next election cycle that will have the same feeling towards cutting spending and reducing the debt that I have. And I think that's critical for the future. We are stacking debt, a debt burden on future generations in a way that they're not going to be able to succeed like we have historically. And unless we can get our arms around the budget, moving towards a balanced budget and cutting the debt, we're just going to make it harder and harder to succeed in the private sector, and we're going to grow a dependence on government that's not sustainable. So I think hopefully there will be some good fiscal conservative Democrats come to the table and realize that the future of the country requires us to really get our fiscal house in order.
But when I felt that we were taking the authority of the Congress away when it came to setting tariffs and trades and negotiating trade deals like NAFTA and like the China trade bill, which I strongly opposed. To fight for these things, you sometimes need to cross the aisle and deal with those other conservatives. There's not as many in the other party, and that's why I'm a Republican. Our platform, I think, is much more attuned to the constitutional principles and much more attuned to free enterprise principles than the Democrat platform. But sometimes you should reach across the aisle to accomplish the important things that need to be done.